Guys, I recently did some shooting with my Sig P320, as you can see in front of us here. So I wanted to do a little bit of cleaning on it just to make sure that everything is clean. And I like to take care of my firearms because they are expensive and I hope to have them for many years to come. So what we're going to do in this video is just a basic cleaning step. I'm going to bring you guys along with that. And just to show you how I'll typically clean one of these guns. I've done several other cleaning videos in the past, but thought I would continue that with my Sig since I need to clean it anyways, and show you guys who are fans of Sig or just guns in general like me how these can be cleaned. Now, of course, with YouTube's guidelines, we are not going to be doing any type of modifications. This is simply showing the process of disassembly for the purposes of maintenance, as YouTube published guidelines state is okay on their platform, and you can see I'm posting it on the screen. We will be following those guidelines. Okay, so the first step in cleaning any firearm is to ensure that the firearm is unloaded. So we are going to drop the magazine. Here's my mag release. I press that, drop that magazine out, and you can see that there is no ammunition in the magazine, so we will set that aside. The next thing I want to do is open the action and lock the action back. Of course, on the Sig, this is your slide lock. So what I will do is put my thumb here, push up on that as I pull the slide back, and that way it will catch in that little notch, and you can see that it is locked that firearm open. And now we can visually check inside the chamber, and we can also physically check inside that chamber to make sure that there is no ammunition. This gun is not overly dirty, but I have been doing some shooting with it. It may be a bit before I shoot it again, so I do want to go ahead and go through the cleaning process. Of course, while we have the action opened, the first step is to turn down this takedown lever right here on the Sig. So I'm just going to put my thumb on that, rotate that 90 degrees down. Okay, you can kind of see there, well, a little over 90, but you can see that it has been rotated. And of course, I'm going to grip that slide. I'm going to press down on the slide lock, and now I can slide the slide and frame apart just like that. Okay, set that down like that. This is our recoil spring and guide rod. I'm going to compress the spring. I'm going to put my hand over it, take my thumb, compress that, and then lift up. That way I can pull the recoil spring and guide rod out. It comes out in a single assembly like that. Set it down, and now I'm just going to take my finger, push up on the barrel just like that, grab it, slide it forward slightly, remove it from the firearm. Okay, and this is basically as far as you will need to go for the purposes of cleaning your Sig or many of your striker firearms as far as that goes. So the first thing that I like to do is take some solvent, and I will take the barrel, since it's obviously going to be what gets most of the problem. That's going to be what gets most of the, I guess you could say, carbon and that sort of thing. I'm just going to take the barrel, take some, just trying to get some of this stuff back out of my way where I get a little more room to show you guys, and just some type of a solvent. Rim oil, this works fine as a solvent. I'm not going to say I'm the biggest fan of it as a lube, but for any firearm, if it's not overly dirty, this does work pretty good as a solvent. So I'm just going to spray some down in that barrel on both ends just to make sure that I get plenty. And then I'm just going to set it aside and let that solvent do its thing. Okay, the slide, one thing you don't want to do is to really get any kind of solvents or anything inside where that firing pin is. So what I typically will do is I will spray toward the forward section of the slide and those rails and things like that, and use a brush to pull that back, as I'll show you shortly. So I'm going to set that down. Next, I'm going to take the frame, and of course in here you can wash it out very well. Okay, I mean, you can spray as much as you want in there and have no issues whatsoever. Of course, with the P320, with it being a modular firearm, if you wanted to, you can remove the fire control group from the frame, from the grip module. It's very easy. Just push this through here, wiggle it out just like that. You know, it does take just a little bit of wiggling, and you know, of course, twist it all the way around and it slips out. And just for demonstration purposes, I'll show you that. Okay, now that we have that twisted out of there, what I can do now is simply lift the firing group, the fire control group, out of the frame. Okay, just once I get it loosened up, it does set in there pretty well. It is kind of stiff, but it will come out if you decide to take it out of there. Okay, got it loose in there. And this one, I don't pull it out very often, so that's one of the reasons why it is in there as stiff as it is. Okay, just lift it up out of the grip module just like that. Set the grip module aside, and of course, there again, guys, this is just a piece of plastic. Okay, lots of these out there available. So we'll set that aside, and of course, this is technically the firearm. You know, this is basically what you get when you buy a Sig firearm. This is the fire control group here. So we will set that aside. And there's something that I want to show you guys when you are cleaning your firearms. There's something very important that you want to look for, and that is the extractor. Okay, I'm going to take one of my brushes here, and you saw me spray some of the solvent stuff up and toward the front of the slide. So I'm just going to take some of what I had gotten there on that slide, and I'm just going to get up inside those rails, and instead of spraying a lot back here toward the back with that firing pin, I don't really want to do that. I'm just going to use the brush and pull some of that solvent back into those rails just like that. Okay, scrub down in here real well, and that way you're not getting a bunch of it inside where your firing pin is. Okay, you are basically keeping that dry. You want to keep that dry. Okay, I'm going to scrub that and make sure that I get all of the buildup out of that there. And what I wanted to point out, in particularly on the extractor, is you want to make sure that you clean behind it. And of course, the extractor, okay, looking at the firearm at the slide, you can see right in here. Okay, that's what is going to pull the spent casing out. Okay, you can kind of see it there. I've got the brush, I'm kind of pointing at it with the brush. It's right here. What you want to do is you want to clean behind that real well. Okay, and you can see there that we really don't have any buildup on that, but you want to keep that clean. Okay, because what happens if you get a lot of buildup right there in that hook is you're not going to get the firearm to extract properly. Okay, it's going to leave cases inside the chamber. It's not going to extract them properly. So simply take a little brush like this, and I'll put some links down in the description where you guys can go and pick some up if you are interested. They're very cheap from Amazon. Okay, just scrub that in there good, get all of that buildup out. Okay, just like that. Okay, you can see it there at just that hook. You know, that is spring loaded, and you know, any kind of buildup can interfere with the action of that. Now that I have the slide done, of course, you can take the fire control group, kind of the same process. Just take your brush, scrub over it, any kind of buildup, which you don't really get a whole lot in these, just the way that they are. You know, but it is a good idea to occasionally just take them apart and just scrub any kind of buildup off of it, any kind of carbon buildup. Okay, so I'm going to set that down. Now we're going to go back to the barrel. The barrel, of course, has been soaking for a while. As I mentioned earlier, that's where most of the buildup's going to be. So I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to run that brush in there, and I like to twist it as I'm running it through. That way it kind of helps to clean any kind of buildup off of the barrel, you know, up through there. So, you know, just like that, run it through a couple of times. You also want to inspect the barrel, especially around the muzzle end of it. Want to look for any kind of cracks or deformation or anything like that. Make sure there's no swelling on the barrel, any kind of bulges or cracks, because if there is, you need to replace the barrel immediately. You don't want to take the risk of using an unsafe barrel or anything like that. Also, as you're going through, make sure that you don't see any kind of loose components, any type of cracking or anything anywhere else on the slide. Same goes for the fire control group. You know, look over the springs to make sure everything is clipped in the way that they're supposed to be. And it's a very simple process, okay? Of course, we're going to wipe a little bit of the solvent off our hands. And one thing that gets overlooked on a lot of firearms is the magazines. Now, it is a good idea to periodically clean your magazines, and it's a very simple process. You know, and you do not want to necessarily use any kind of lubrication or anything like that with your magazines, but it is a good idea to occasionally clean them out. Okay guys, we're going to take a pen, and I'm going to use the tip of the pen to depress that button, and then I'm going to slide that base plate forward slightly, just like that. Don't want to go too far because that spring is going to want to come out of there. Moving that forward slightly, you can see here underneath there, I don't want all of that coming out, so I'm going to put my thumb over it as I pull the base plate on out, and you can see the spring and everything wants to come out just like that. Okay, you can slide the spring and the follower straight out, no problem whatsoever. And particularly if you carry a gun like this, one thing that will happen, especially if you carry a spare magazine, you will get lint and things like that inside the magazine. So that way you want to clean that out very well. No lubricant or anything like that inside the magazine. Just take a paper towel or some type of a cloth and just wipe it out, okay? Just like that. You can see there, we don't have anything inside this magazine. You know, it's a very simple process, does not take long to do. Now, not all magazines are going to come apart the way these do, but, you know, those that will, I would recommend that you occasionally do that. Make sure that you check over the follower to make sure that everything is right on it. Check the spring to make sure there's nothing that's kinked or anything. And then, of course, you're ready to put it back together. Very simple. Okay, I'm going to take the spring, and just like it came out, it's going to go back. I'm just going to press it in just like that. Take my thumb, I'm going to push down on the spring and compress it into the magazine. Okay, make sure that you get all of that back in properly. Just have to take just a minute to fight with it. There we go. Now that I have that set back in there, I'm simply going to take the base plate, slip it back over, and all I have to do is push up till it snaps into place. Now that we've got everything cleaned, I'm just going to take a paper towel, just kind of wipe everything off, just like that. You know, to get any kind of excessive solvents or anything like that from it, you know. And of course, the fire control group, while I have it out, I'm going to go ahead and put just a little bit of oil. Let's see. Now, the oil that I use is one I'd recently started using, and I'm finding that this is a pretty good oil. It's Cleanse oil. This is not sponsored. This is something that I found their videos, or I found a video online to where it actually done some pretty heavy testing of some various different gun lubes and gun cleaning solutions and things like that. And Cleanse oil was very impressive as far as how well it lubricated, so I decided to pick some up. If you guys are interested in it, I'll leave a link down in the description. One thing I really like about this is it does not stink the way some do. Okay, so I'm just going to put a drop of the oil in a few key places where we have metal to metal contact. Of course, having that needle is a great way to get the lube just right where you want it. Okay, put a little in there, and I have a tendency of over lubing some of these guns, because if it is one that I'm not going to shoot for a while, I will typically put it up just a little bit wet, you know, just a little bit of excessive lube on it. So now we're going to take our grip module and take a paper towel just like we've done before, and you know, just kind of wipe out anything of that. And of course, you know, just to make sure you don't have anything in there when you go putting everything back together. Okay, we're going to go ahead and drop the grip module in. Start with putting it in toward the back. Get that trigger down through the opening. I'm trying to do this as I'm filming, guys, so just kind of bear with me. Okay, I want to make sure that it is seated properly in the back, and then I'm going to press it down from the front, and if it does not get seated properly, it's not going to go into place, just like you're seeing there. Okay, now let's try that again. Got to get this seated inside the grip module properly, or it is not going to go in the way that it should. Okay, now just a slight press on that trigger, it let it go down into position. You got to make sure that this lines up properly. If it doesn't, it's going to kind of hold you out. Okay, now that we have that dropped back down into the grip module, I'm going to just take my takedown lever, something that I do on it as well. I want to put just a little bit of lube on that, and you know, it isn't 100% necessary, but I would rather have a little bit too much lubrication on these and not have an issue with them than to not have enough lubrication on them. You know, again, guns are expensive, and I like to take care of them where I can enjoy shooting them for many years to come. Okay, get everything lined up. Okay, and there is a notch right here on the front of this, and that's what I'm trying to show on camera, but it's not going to work out as well as I'd hoped. If you turn that notch in the proper direction, let's see, I've got it started through there now. It's going to kind of push this out of the way to where you can get that into the module. Okay, and you can see here, just kind of working it through into position. You know, and get that in there like that, just rotate it a bit, and once you get it in there, there you go. Very simple, all the way through. And I'm going to put it in the down position as I will need it when I go to reassemble the firearm. Set this out of the way. One thing that I do want to do on the slide, where I had cleaned the slide with the brush, I always like to take a Q-tip and get inside those rails. Okay, just like this. Get up in there, any kind of build up, and you can see there we don't really have a lot, but I do like to try to get that out of the slide. You know, it really depends on how much time you spend with your firearms, how long you want to have them to preserve them or whatever. You know, the cleaner you keep them, the better, and you don't have to white glove them, guys. I'm not saying that. You know, I do periodically go through and do an in-depth cleaning of my firearms, but for the most part, what you see me doing here is typically what I'm going to do. And this gun is not very dirty, as I had mentioned earlier. You know, we do just have just a little bit of buildup, but not much. And again, it is where I've been doing some shooting. This is actually the first video that you guys will probably see. And you know, I've got a couple of other videos coming up using this firearm. Okay, so we're just going to get down in there, and you can kind of see some of the buildup down in there too. Just like that, just wipe it out or whatever. Okay, set that off to the side. Paper towel. Then we're going to come in with a little bit more of the cleanse oil. Putting some of that cleanse oil in a few spots, namely right up here on those rails. Just a couple of drops. It does not take much. As well as on this side, a couple of drops. And that will get distributed once we get everything back together. Okay. Wipe off the barrel. You can run a patch through this. As you saw me run that brush through, you can run a couple of patches through there as well. And one way that I'll typically do it, instead of taking a brush or taking a patch holder, just a little trick that I do, guys, is I'll just simply take the brush itself and I'll put a patch over top of it, take the barrel like that, and then just twist it and push it through. Okay, that's just really up to you guys. I mean, that's how you want to do it. You can use a brush holder, but I find that this typically works fine. Okay, and then of course when you pull it back through, now it can have that patch sometimes can tear off or something like that, so make sure that you get it all out of there. Make sure your barrel is clear before you go reassembling everything. But as you can see here, that it is pretty clean, and I really don't worry about it getting little pieces of these patches stuck on these brushes. You know, there again, guys, this is tools that are meant to be used, and they're not very expensive, so that's how I'll typically use them that way, because I've broke I don't know how many of those patch holders trying to get them through the barrels of different guns. So that I find that works just as easy. Okay, and me, just for the purposes of trying to take care of my guns, I'll just put just a drop or so in the barrel, just like that. I'm going to take the slide. I'm going to set the barrel back into the slide, just like that. Make sure that it is locked into position. And of course, that little bit of oil that I put on there, it's going to help distribute out inside there, and it's going to just kind of help protect it against wear and all that. Okay, now I'm going to take the guide rod recoil spring assembly. You don't have to use any lube on that or anything, just wipe it off, just any kind of buildup. Now pay attention to the orientation. I have seen people try to put these in backwards. You don't want to do that because it's not going to work right. Okay, now for this firearm in particular, the Sig P320, note the position of where it's going to go. I take the recoil spring and guide rod, I set the front of it into place first. You can see just like that. I take my thumb and just kind of cup over it. The reason that I do that is if it comes loose, I still have it captured. I don't have to worry about it flying around somewhere. I'm going to push in with my thumb and push down at the same time. And you can see that I have it clipped back into place, just like that. Okay, you want to make sure that you get it centered, just like that. If you don't put that in properly, it's not going to function properly. Okay, now we will take our assembly, and I'm simply going to set the slide and frame back together just like this, and I'm going to pull the action all the way back. I'm going to press up with my thumb on that slide lock to lock that slide in the open position. Now I am going to close the takedown lever, and then I am going to allow that slide to go forward. But we're not finished. I'm going to function test that firearm. I'm going to point it in a safe direction. I'm going to press that trigger, and I'm going to hold the trigger just like that. I pressed it, you heard the click. I'm holding that trigger back. Now I want to cycle the action of that firearm, still holding that trigger back, and now I'm going to release that trigger, and the purposes of that is to make sure it is going to function properly. So let's listen for the click. Okay, we got the click, so that tells us that the firearm should be working properly. Of course, there again, guys, just take a paper towel, wipe it down, make sure everything is good and clean, and it should be ready for your next range trip or for concealed carry or for whatever purposes you have for your particular firearm. Me, this one, I carry it some. I've actually been carrying it the last few days. I'm not decided if I'm going to carry it this week or not. It's tough. It really, I haven't really decided yet. This is one that I will occasionally carry though. But for now, what I'm going to do is simply put everything back together and set it back up and have it ready for the next time I decide to get it out. But guys, hope you liked the video. Let me know if you have any questions by putting them in the comments below. Check out all of the videos on my channel. Thanks for watching. Check out all the links down in the description. What you buy there helps to support what we do here. Thanks for watching. Check out the rest of the videos on my channel. Subscribe, share the video, and we'll see you next time.